Hi, everyone. My name is Mia Park, and welcome to my interview series. This is In Response Interviews with Intriguing Internalizers. I started this interview series in the year 2020 as my own internal response to what's happening in this really intense world. So today is August 1st. Phew, it's August 1st, 2020. We are still dealing with the global health pandemic of COVID-19, and we are still very much fighting for equality and racial justice. I am in Chicago, Illinois, and this very esteemed and wonderful guest that I have today is also in Chicago, Mr. Gabriel Halpern. Woo! The crowds go wild because you, my friend, are a living legend. So I got to tell you for a second about Gabriel, because if you're in the Chicago yoga community, you can't not know about this gentleman. Okay, he's one of the, I would say in Chicago, one of the old school yoga guys, one of the first people to open up a studio that he left in 2018, but could have kept going if you wanted to. And just has been a real like solid foundation for our yoga community in Chicago. And he's seen and done a lot as far as the practices changing, the people changing, the incorporation of yoga. And we can go on and on. But one of the things I love about Gabriel, as you'll soon discover, is his amazing gift of gab. Gabriel's Dharma talks are like not only entertaining, but deep and educational and inspirational. So I'm going to let you take over from here. Mr. Halpern, welcome. Is there anything you want people to know about you? Anything else?
Thank you so much for that very, very kind and inflated description of me, my life. Sure. The first thing I want to share with you is right off the bat, I am not here as a political commentator. I'm not here as a social activist. I'm not here as a career counselor. I'm here as the mouthpiece for yoga. So I want to share that I'm purposely putting on my persona, okay, as opposed to if I take it off, I got all the feelings like everybody else out there. We've had a relative that we took to the hospital, didn't see for 5 weeks, and she passed away. So I'm not immune to what's going on with the pandemic. So don't confuse or conflate the fact that when I put on my teacher persona, I'm talking about another storyline, and I'm choosing not to engage in something else because I hope that the storyline I'm going to share is going to help you engage, because yoga is both a world engaging and a world renouncing technique at the same time. So I want to start that way. So here's what I want you to know. This is what my location is, where I am right now. You see that little light switch right there? Okay, that's a reminder that when you woke up this morning, your soul was returned to you. Did you know that? Did you even realize that? Did you take a moment out to say, I'm so grateful to have another day of life. It's so freaking precious. So if you didn't know that or you don't do that, can I invite you to turn the light switch on? Now I know you're an American. Hey, nobody's going to mandate I have to turn my light switch on. Please, okay, I get it. I'm from Brooklyn. Don't turn your light switch on. If you want to be here without your switch on, fine. But personally speaking, I think you'd enjoy it more if you had it on. I'd probably enjoy you more, but that's how it is. Anyway, whether you're here with it on or not, I also want to remind you right there in my own room, you don't have to look too far for the symbols. There's a small mirror and a big mirror. And yoga wants you to do reflections on both mirrors. See, the small mirror is like your ego looking at yourself. How my pose is doing? Am I advancing? Am I sitting meditating long? After all these years, is this still so boring as it was when I first began? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm still doing that. When is something going to happen? Probably never. Okay, so there's the small mirror is like rear view mirrors, always looking at yourself, checking to see how you're doing. But that serves only a small part of getting aware or becoming more a witness in an objective sense to your own life, because there's also the big mirror. Oh, behind that. Yeah. Because yoga says that the ultimate of what you're doing is you're tracing consciousness back to its source, which turns out to be the source of your own being. So when you say, what am I looking for, is who is looking. And that big mirror, according to them, and this is mind-boggling, has no content. It reflects whatever comes in front of it, but it doesn't distort or at the small level take it to be myself. It sees through into something else, and that's the big mirror. And I guess it's confusing to use the word empty mind or, thoughtless state. Relinquish all thoughts. What is that? It sounds like a misnomer, but yet that's what it's pointing to. So you turn the light switch on. You start by watching the little you. You connect to the big picture, And then it's a road. It's a process. Most people, it doesn't happen at first glimpse. And so in the background, there's the masters of Tibet, on my tanka there, the meditation masters, right? The ascended masters, or whatever fantasy, romance with your imagination you want to create about. Are there beings who are looking after humanity and always have, and have moved to another dimension, and they send out grace waves, but only to those who ask? We have free will. So if you want to invoke their response, evoke their presence. Ask for them. They're looking out over the Buddha fields to send whoever's looking up some light. So I just wanted to have that in the background to let you know in a certain way. That's my inner location. If I skipped the question already, it started right there.
That's okay. You don't need to answer any questions. You can just go. But thank you for those metaphors and those very real life applications. And that's one thing I've always appreciated about studying with you. You can take these giant esoteric ideas, and I love how you said, like, I'm from Brooklyn. You just ground that. You ground it and you make it real, and you connect it to the real life here.
Absolutely. So, it's really
yeah.
important also, one of the things I learned from one of my teachers, Ram Dass, was saying, everything I say is all about me, but there's nothing personal in it. So when I share these things about my life, what I'm really hoping is that you will get to see the things around your room, your house, that represent for you some kind of symbolic or metaphoric connection to spirit. The beauty of intelligence is everybody's smart in a different way. How you're going to do it, that's up to you. But it's not about learning anything about me except as a thing to carry them off of and recognize it in your own life. So spirit has its wrappings in your flavor.
Love that. So like you're being the vehicle. You're like the mirror. You're just reflecting, right?
Well, as a teacher, I am as a human being. I'm acknowledging the specific individuality, the specific particularization that I am. You can't deny the individual aspect of your ethnicity, your culture, your historical time moment, your geography, all those kind of karmic factors. I always ask my rabbi, I said, are you a human being first, or are you a Jewish person first? He says, well, I'm a human being first, but I'm a particular kind of human being. So, we all have a certain oneness and unity in our humanity, but at another level, there's a specific subjective differentiation, which in a global world and a multicultural world now, not just in the future, now, the recognition of the beauty of your own tradition helps you to recognize the beauty of other people's tradition.
I love that. Thank you.
That's yoga. That's the union, the ecumenical spirit of yoga. I love yoga. It's not from a white culture. Okay. And even though it has its own patriarchy and it had its own slave, yogis are beyond that. Non-denominational, non-sectarian. Has nothing to do with gender or age or social caste or monetary ability. None of those things apply. It's open for everybody. I think that's a beautiful statement of global awareness.
I think so too, if it's introduced correctly. And I do believe that a lot of the onus of that is on the student. So let me ask, we could go on and on. I wanted to start someplace. There's a common mistake that a lot of spiritual leaders have by guiding us towards spiritual bypassing. I appreciate how you talk about we are in the world and we are human beings, but we're a particular flavor of human being. However, I think a lot of spiritual leaders will use the excuse of spirituality to bypass the reality of racial injustice, of the colonialization of yoga, of sexual harassment in the yoga tradition, lots and lots of cases, particularly of power control and sexual abuse from teachers to their students. Can you talk a little bit about spiritual bypassing?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I always tell people that we are living in the modern era, and in the modern era, humanism is much more afoot than belief in the divine other. This is Kali Yuga. The spiritual drought is the deepest, they say, in the Indian tradition. So number one, I would say to people, if you're involved in any kind of spirituality, whether it's yoga or any other conscious thing, make sure it is not an apsychological spirituality. And if you're involved in psychology, make sure it's not an aspiritual psychology. And let me unpack that, right? You can get into spirituality and try to transcend things in such a way where you avoid the material plane or escape the material plane or have a pejorative connotation about history. And it's a nightmare in certain ways. And of course, most real spiritualities talk about dealing with suffering. How do you deal with the fact of human life, what's constant and grave, and your own mortality, and how do you deal with that? So at a certain level, compassion is always there. I've never seen any teaching that's lasted that doesn't acknowledge compassion, and that means involvement with the weal and woe of everybody, not just your kith and kin. Don't ask for who the bell tolls. So that's one thing. So if you're studying spirituality, make sure it doesn't bypass the emotional and psychological work that people have to do on themselves, which is not only about their own personal and collective, past and trauma, but also the social system, the political system. Even though historically speaking, yogis don't involve themselves in politics, even if they're advisors. They're ahistorical, and their politics are transcendental. Now, we can criticize that, but again, they tell you right off the bat, remember, according to yoga, there are stages of life. And during your student stage, your householder stage, which is like the first 50 or whatever years of your life, you're actively involved in society, drinking the cup to the dredge. But then the second half of life is a slow filtering or phasing out. And this is one of the things I think is not as good for the West. Retirement. Their idea of renunciation is completely leaving everything behind. My idea is that the older you get, the more experience you have, and that we need the cross-generational fertilization, which includes, older people tree hugging and being ombudsmen for, voting rights and stuff like that. So I don't think that just because you get older, you're not supposed to be involved in it. But the way I usually tell my students to get involved is your daily practices is where you transcend everything. You chunk out time to empty out of all your thought forms, all your aspirations, to be that mirror, that big mirror. And then when you come back, that's when you choose, how do I want to involve myself in my incarnation? What are my gifts? What do I want to contribute? And for some people, it's not changing the legislature or changing policy or working in the soup kitchen or whatever, save the whales. There's tons of stuff to be done out there wherever you see a need. But there are other ways that people work for slow change. For instance, education. So many of the problems we face are educational based. People don't know. They're not aware. Yoga calls it ignorance. And I say this, remember, yoga takes it not only just to social ignorance, but to ignorance of your own being. Can you make really clear understanding, have a clear understanding and sharp decision making when you're not clear about who you are? And even though it says in one of the scriptures, I am the vine and ye are the branches, without me you can do nothing. Are you connected? Because if you're connected, the mind at peace finds way of affecting its environment, and social action and social integration come after you're connected. But if you're a mess, like Ramakrishna says, the person bound hand and foot can't free another. So it's the responsibility.
So what do we do? So
what do we
let me put a pause button on there, because what you're saying is, like, I agree with everything you're saying. So if somebody is a mess and they're actually under the spiritual guise of being helpful when they're actually being harmful, as members of, we can be microcosmic of Chicago's yoga community, what do we individually do to help the cause when there are these messy people making more of a mess?
Yeah, well, listen, unfortunately, in every relationship, you have to find out what's in it for me. And so if you got involved with them, you're probably not seeing something or overlooking something or denying something, what they call the guru shadow, that there's a lot of people who use power over other people instead of power on behalf of other people. Personally, listen, my life has been one of helping women come to the public fore. 90% of the people in yoga are entry level are women. All the people are women, even though traditionally in India, it was men who were the gurus. Women are the leaders in yoga. So one of the things I've been doing personally is giving them a voice, always making my apprentices and the teachers talk philosophy. Let me hear you articulate, share your voice, step into the power of what you know.
By the way, there's God calling. There's God calling, telling you you're doing a great job.
Yeah. And then, unladylike conduct. You have to help sisters smash the patriarchy. They need male help, but they have plenty of things they have to do. And again, I never understood this from the inside as much, but like being married for a long time and having 2 daughters, I never realized that sisters aren't just filled with solidarity. There's cattiness and backbiting and stuff like that. Feminists have their own work to do with each other. And there's a lot of intersectionality that makes the common experience that they have slightly different for, let's say, an African-American woman is different than an African woman, right? And a Southeast Asian woman, they all face oppression and patriarchy, but it's slightly flavored differently because of the culture they come from. So there's intersectionality. And I'm trying to find what's the intersectionality with a man who wants to support women. Again, I tell them, read the psychological literature of Women Who Run with the Wolves, get in touch with the goddess energy again, empower yourself in all the ways that seem like they're from pagan traditions, but they're still there and always have been there. Connect to nature and, birds of a feather, find your vibe is your tribe, hang out with the people who support that stuff, and then blow the whistle, be the whistleblowers on, again, if you go back to anybody, once the person has shown you to be untrustworthy, whatever, why did you go back? Why didn't you trust your gut? And so this is why, again, you get to yoga and psychology. Why? Because so many of us have experiences where we've taught to comply and be obedient. And compliance and obedience leads to inauthenticity. Then you're denying your gut. You're not trusting your intuition. And that always leads to bad karma.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
How do you empower people? Well, again, first of all, they have to be looking up. Because if you can remember back, there were times in our lives when we weren't interested in this stuff. And if anybody would have told us about it, we weren't ripe, we would have just brushed us off. So on one level, it's each person's responsibility to say, I want to know something more. The Sufis say, new organs of perception come through necessity. So to increase your perception, increase your necessity. If you don't need to see any deeper than you currently do, you won't.
That's right.
As is shown by so many people out there who we have to deal with, who seem to have stopped thinking about anything and have conclusions about everything. Very, very hard to negotiate and have dialogue with them.
Yeah.
So we have to be open ourselves. And so
I feel like you may have answered the next question with what you just said, but I'm wondering, to put context to where we are now, what is your spiritual response to the health pandemic and to this coinciding uprising fight for racial justice happening right here and now in our lives?
Well, again, I said, I'm talking as a yogi and not just as a person who's like worried about if I go out too much besides food, am I endangering the other people in my house? I'm at risk because of my age and a compromised immune system. I get it. I'm worried about my daughters. Sure, at the human level. But as a yoga teacher, first I would say, remember, famine, pestilence, war, that's nothing new. Corrupt political leaders, fanatic religious leaders, that's nothing new. A yoga person is trying to not stand outside history, but have an overview that gives them a perspective so that there's a certain kind of calm in how they go about things. So first, how do I deal with the pandemic? The same way I deal with my daily life. Strengthen my immune system so I can be as available as possible and not be hampered by more than a certain amount of natural things that happen to your body as you age. And if you practice yoga, you probably have an old injury or things happen to people as you age. And you have to change the way you practice in order to keep your game going, right? So one way I would say is don't freak out and do the things that you were doing even before the pandemic, which is you weren't taking care of yourself, right? All the doctors who are talking about social distancing and wearing the mask and not gathering in crowds and minimizing the non-essential, I get it. Have one of them even said diet is really important.
I know that, right. Well, I feel like in the way that we've recognized that Black and Brown community members are the ones that are dying the most from this because of their compromised nutritional and lifestyle supports, because of the system that's not been supporting them. So in that way, yes, but directly, no, I haven't heard that. And you're right. It would benefit everybody if we talked about that too.
Exactly. It's, it's a small, again, it's one of the things you can do. And if you do it, it makes a difference. But if that's not on board, because that's not what they think about health, because, there's still a lot, with all the things that have burgeoned over the last 50 years to make more available to us, vegetarian, vegan, and tons of options that are great. So it's moving in the right direction, but it still moves very slowly. The wheels grind fine, but very, very slow. So if you can't put up with the incremental gains of social action, you're going to be very, very frustrated with this path, so that's another thing. You got to have equanimity. And again, how does your over or under reaction make you less sensitive to really coming up with a good solution in the here and now? So what do I do to it? Well, first of all, I try to be a steady rudder. As I said, I'm pulling the elder card. I have a lot of people who want to find out, is there anything you have to say that can help me besides hit the mat? What's the tip you want to hit the mat? Why? Because more things are understood by direct practice and not by speculative metaphysics. Okay. And again, in terms of karma, everybody has a different way of serving. So it's not just, you say, what should I do for social action? It's not just a matter of getting out and protesting or using your dollars to sanction people who support platforms that are not healthy to any of us. A lot of ways, but that's not the only way. You can do it in a very, very calm way on just going about your daily life, being as conscious as you can, as kind as you can. People think that doesn't make a difference. Excuse me, in a society that's lost civility and doesn't know how to just give basic mutual respect to people, I'm sorry, you think that that's not a powerful thing to do? That shows that you don't believe in that. But, there's a collective belief system as well as an individual belief system. And if you can make yourself ill or well by the thoughts you have and the actions that you take, that's true collectively as well. So you don't want to buy into that? Well, okay, then find out the hard way. Like I said, I've done enough lessons the hard way. I don't need any more hard lessons.
Yeah, and because you're such a wonderful and unapologetically you teacher, you're allowing us to make the lessons easier on ourselves. All we have to do is listen to you and people like you. Believe it or not, we're going to wrap up soon. I want to give a quick shout out to Per Erez, who's giving comments here. He quoted you. If you don't, yeah, Per. I got to interview Per a couple weeks ago too.
Great.
Per says, he quotes you, if you don't need to see any deeper than you won't. I'm sorry. Per quotes you saying, if you don't need to see any deeper than you are, you won't. Beautiful. That's right. So, Mr. Halpern, thank you so much for joining us. I know we could go on and on forever. And
can I sing a song before I go? A little snippet?
Of course.
I start walking my way. You start walking yours. We meet in the middle beneath that old Georgia pine. We save a lot of ground, 'cause we both gave a little. Ain't no road too long when we meet in the middle.
Woo!
Even though I missed the words and I didn't get the right rhyme, and maybe you get the idea. Check out Diamond Rio. That's a good song. All right. Thanks a lot for this opportunity, Mia.
You're wonderful, Gabriel. Ladies and gentlemen, Gabriel Halpern. And if you haven't already, please see his website, GabrielHalpern.com. Listen to his Dharma talks. Never not listen to them. They're amazing.
Sign up. Shameless marketing. Sign up. You'll get some free videos and stuff.
That's right. So thank you so much, sir. Yeah. So much love. Thanks.
Take care.
Take care. Thanks for watching, everybody. Oh, and real quick, if you want to continue this series, you can support me by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Mia Park. And thanks for watching. And if you're listening on the podcast, thanks for listening. And until next time, take care. Bye, everyone.